Hey everybody, it's Marty the JavaScript Party and my buddy Rhett, and we are doing some code with our Space and Time project. I just got it all updated to Angular 20. Today is the 1st of June. I mean, dog days of summer. That's what we call it down here in the South. We are in the teeth of summer. It's not nearly as hot as it usually is. So June and then July is like the probably the very middle of summer, maybe August, and then June, July, August, September is when things will start to consider cooling down. Sometimes it stays hot, sometimes it gets cooler. October is an interesting month here. Basically, the thing is, we have this thing called Halloween. I don't know how many, I don't know if it's a worldwide thing or not, but in the United States, at the end of October, we have Halloween. And sometimes it's very easy to remember because sometimes you have to get like very, very heavy costumes when you have little kids. Like they're wearing like these. It's kind of cool when it's cold because they get to wear these big bear costumes and stuff like that. But then sometimes it's really hot and they wear like little thin costumes and you just never know what it's going to be like. That's one of the ones that's just like it's a 50-50 every year whether it seems to be one of the extremes though. It seems to either be really hot because it doesn't take much to be really hot since we're all acclimated to the cold at that point. So even if it's in the 80s, it's super hot for us, or it's very, very cold, like in the 40s, 50s. So it's really fun. It's a very fun holiday because you sort of get to meet all your neighbors and see all the little kids and stuff like that. I'm sort of like they all seem to remember us, but we don't remember all of them, because there's just um, like 100 kids, 200 kids will come up to the door, and we always give out. We're very generous with the candy. We give a usually a full size candy bar of a like something from the Mars Corporation. Typically, we go to our warehouse store and buy like a big box. But anyways, we just upgraded to Angular 20, and I would say that so one of the things that I done, and it has not been cheap, right? Like time wise. I've been working on this project since the first of the year, first day of the first of this year, and we are in the halfway through, and I do not have a whole lot done. Um, and I would say the biggest reason I don't have a lot done is because I have put a tremendous amount of focus on testing. Um, and mostly because I wanted to learn about testing. And there was two kinds of testing. One was end-to-end testing, and one was unit testing. I am absolutely sold on end-to-end testing, particularly for any sort of application where you don't actually create data. Um, if you just render data and all that, end-to-end testing is amazing. Now, I think end-to-end testing might kind of be like unit testing for objects that, for systems that create data because it sort of forces a discipline. I think I don't know about this. I'm really kind of chewing on this, but it seems like it forces a discipline of you have to be able to create and then remove and clean up what you create. Um, so if you were creating like, oh, we want an application that creates records for new hires and collects all their information and all that, your system would need to be able to really effectively end-to-end test it. It would need to be able to create a new hire and then delete the new hire and completely clean itself out up, or you're gonna end up with thousands and thousands of dummy new hire records. Um, and I do think that all applications should do that. Should have some way of effectively deleting data and in a way that is like legal, right? Because sometimes you really can't delete data. Um, so, anyways, that's that. So I did get the end-to-end testing. I'm completely sold on end-to-end testing because I can tell you that every single time I do an upgrade, I'm always like, ooh, I wonder if everything works. And yesterday I was able to run the end-to-end tests, and everything that I think is everything works. And I was able to hit the buttons, and it ran end-to-end. But I did not run the unit test. So npm run test. I believe that's how we do that. I can look up in here and I can see. Yeah, this is it. So this is going to run my unit tests, and it's going to generate code coverage, and it's going to watch the unit test for changes. So now this, all of this that I'm doing right now is deprecated. And the Angular talked about that in their Angular 20 release video, and oh my God, it's just like, they're like, yeah, we're considering these 3 things. Try them out. You let us know what you think. And it's just like, are you shitting me? Really? You think we're just going to try out unit tests? But yeah, so they are just boldly going down the, hey, we're getting rid of Karma unit tests. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes there. Seems like a bizarre decision. Okay, so good news. First thing is that the first bit of good news is all the 73 unit tests that I have are all passing, and we still have 100% test coverage. So that is good. So that should conclude this, but let's see, we're going to do git log. The problem is that I like to have my commits to be like sort of go together. Like it's like one complete unit of work. It's just something I like to do. I like to be able to, like if something's broken, I like to be able to just go back and say, okay, where's this, where's that, and all that. So I really want these 3, this commit, and the current work, to be all in one commit. And one of the things that Angular kind of makes you do is you have to run on committed code. They force you to commit all the code. So that forces me, like when I created my my commands that I wanted to sort of remember, like I want to know how I went up to 20, and these are the 2 commands. Like let's say in the future there's some 3rd command that you should always run, blah 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 blah. I would have that. I know I'm pretty sure I uploaded. Maybe I started at 19, but like when I go upgrade to 21, I want to be able to look back and see, okay, this is how I went to 20, and then these are the things I've added since 20. This will, as I add more components and things like that, they'll show up in the middle here. It just kind of gives me like I find a very useful sort of history. But I don't want, I want this command, this commit, and this commit to be merged together with this. So I want these 2 to be gone. And so I did make sure, I'm pretty sure I only, like I didn't push. So if I say git status, I think it's going to say I'm 2 commits behind. Yeah, see this little 2 here. Push 2 commits an origin. So I want to, and I don't know how to do this. This is something like I've always liked doing this. I mean, this is what I've always wanted, but in this I've always put them in. But so, and this is a perfect project to experiment and try to do things that I've always wanted to do. So anyways, so I have a project that is in Git, and I have some changes that I want to commit, but I would like the previous 2, and then I'm going to say unpushed commits to be combined with these changes. And let's see if ChatGPT can put this into some sort of reasonable English for me because that was bizarre. To combine your current changes with the previous two unpushed commits. That's a great way to put that into a single commit. Follow these steps. Make sure your working directory is clean except for your current changes. You can check the status. Use interactive rebase to squash the last two commits. So this is something I remember some dude, this real genius guy. Like, it's kind of funny. I think I was 40 at the time, and he was like 22, and he had just graduated from Georgia Tech, and he was just like really, really smart, right? He was super smart, and super funny, just a real clever guy. And he tried to teach me this, did the worst job. Now I have like this freaking like PTSD sort of aversion to whenever I see rebase and squash. Like, okay, yeah, that's stupid. I don't want to learn that. But it probably isn't nearly as bad as I remember it. I think he just really screwed up the teaching of it. So now I want to learn this, and I want to have an open mind on rebasing and squashing. And I think you used to have to be a little bit like, you had to be really protective because people would try to teach you stuff, and a lot of times you're dumber after they get done teaching it to you. So I don't think that that's the problem with ChatGPT. I think in general with ChatGPT, if you know exactly what you want to learn, it does a great job of teaching you exactly what you want to learn. Now, on the other side, a human being, when they're trying to teach you stuff, they can kind of look at what you know and all that, and they can do a pretty good job of sort of guessing what you don't know and then teaching you what you don't even know you think to know. That ChatGPT seems to really not be very good at. So like, there could very well be some obvious crazy thing that you should know how to do and should be like how did you get to this level without knowing about that, that ChatGPT just won't tell you about, and then you'll find out later. A good example of that was apparently in like back-end applications with Node and stuff in Express, you really should have a separate routes directory that has all your routes and stuff in it. And me and ChatGPT have been working on an application, and then I was like, you know what? I think I would like Swagger endpoints, and it was like, oh yeah, so all you do is do this with your routes, and I don't have routes. Like and I was like, well, should I move all my code so that I have routes? And it's like, yeah, that's a great idea. It's like, it would have been nice in the beginning if you'd have told me to do routes, or at least mentioned routes. And hell, maybe it did. I don't know. But anyway, so this rebase thing is coming. One of the things about rebase is that you have to understand how to use, you typically pops up in a VI editor. And if you've never used VI, you never learned it, God help you. It's really weird. I had to use it back when I used to do Perl, but I know a lot of people that, like, by a lot, okay, so I know probably a dozen people that like prefer VI over any other kind of thing, because apparently it's very easy to change a lot of things at one time, stuff like that. I don't know. I think VI is weird, but it did make a pretty good point though. I need to make sure that everything I'm trying to commit I want. Okay, so package lock, I have no idea why I even opened that, and there's nothing in package, so that's all I have. And I know I didn't commit. I'm pretty sure I didn't commit anything I didn't want. All right, so accept your current changes, so it's clean. Get status, it all looks good. Use interactive rebase to squash the last two commits. Since you want to combine the last two commits and your current changes into one, rebase and make the commits squash. I don't know exactly what rebase. I know what commits are. I know what marking is. I don't really know. I think squashed is pushed together. Take multiples and put them into one. And squash is like I believe it's like an official Git word, because it's probably not the best word for that. But 3, in the interactive rebase editor, I'll see something like this, and then it says PGSQL. That is weird. What a strange thing to put there. But there'll be pick, pick, and pick, and change it to pick, squash, squash. So this is very very primitive language that's very primitive. Save and close the editor. Git will then prompt you to edit the final commit message, write the combined message you want, and save again. Done. Push with force if unpushed. Only do a force if you're sure no one has pulled from this branch yet. Okay. So I think this force thing, okay, so I never pushed. Never pushed the commits that I am squashing. So is force still necessary? So I know I worked at one place where I've worked at two places where we had like dozens of developers, and a couple of developers would jokingly say, "Oh yeah, if your commit doesn't work, just add -- force to it," and they were all fired within a year. Everyone I've ever known that uses -- force ends up getting fired, usually pretty mysteriously. Usually they're just fired. I don't know what it is that they're doing because I've never that's like one of those roads I don't go down. But I'm pretty sure if you find yourself doing -- force, you are on a path where you're likely to find yourself fired for a very abstract reason. I do know that like their stuff, they were constantly breaking everybody else's code with the force -- force. So that's one of those things where I'm just like, hey, don't do that. Whatever that's doing, don't do it, because if you're doing that and that's your solution. And now I was working in the exact same place. I never had to do a force. On many occasions, I would push code, and then like a week later, the code that I pushed was no longer in the code base. It was just gone. So I'm pretty sure it had something to do with that force. Fortunately, I always keep local branches. So I go back, find the code that was just magically gone, and then go and put it back in. I know that it was very strange because it would be like, okay, now this, and I go back to commit, and now it's broken at this commit, but I go forward and it's not broken. Okay, what's the difference? And the tool wasn't showing me what was different, but code was missing. So yeah, I don't know. I think if you find yourself, it's kind of like if you find yourself doing -- force, or if you find yourself doing - important in CSS, those are sort of flags that you might be being a jerk on it, you know, not intentionally, but you might be being a jerk, and you might be making enemies that you don't understand why. You know, so I would not do -- force. I would definitely understand, like if I have a conflict and it's not working and all that, I would take the time to try to understand what's going on, not do a -- force just to make it happen. So that is that. I never push my kids that I'm squashing, so is force still necessary? See, I think force would only be necessary if, you know, oh, okay. You only need to do if you're rewriting history. Never pushed the branch at all. Or you're creating even. Unpushed commits. Oh, so it's saying I do not. Okay, so I don't need to. If you have pushed the branch before and you're squashing the last two unpushed, oh, it says I must use force. Okay, so is there another option like reverting? Um, the last two commits. You'd rather undo the last and keep changes in your working directory than create a single new commit that includes everything. That's absolutely possible, and I think this is how I normally do it. And I do, and and it's because I shy away from the force thing. So yeah, I think I want to do git reset soft head too. Yeah. So I normally do get reset soft head one all the time with the one here, just to undo the last one because I do that all the time. I'll like make a commit just so I can make some sort of change and then I undo the last commit. Um, okay, so this I think is what I want to do. So I think this will basically act like the last two commits never happened. So okay, so now I have changes. I have stashed. So I think it made my last two changes stage. So now I can do a git log. Yeah, and now all I have is my ads layout. So all of my changes are now uncommitted. And then I think I can just, so things will get weird. Sometimes will get weird at this point, I think, in that I think it's possible that I would have a commit. But this is, so what I have here is everything that updated my CLI. Basically, my CLI. Oh, this just updated my package. And then it's so weird that I have to do an npm install. I probably should do that before I commit this stuff. But I think we're okay. I don't. Okay. Okay, so now I want to do, so all I have are changes in my Angular, JSON. I think my history looks good. It's an npm install. This can take a while. I actually, okay, so nothing happened, I don't think, because it was so fast. So apparently it did an npm install. I don't think it always does, like in older versions of Angular. I'm not sure on that. Okay, so git, and this is video 148. It commit dash m video 148. So I use double quotes this time. I think 9 times out of 10 I use single quotes. I will say that the single quotes work in this, but they do not work on like a regular DOS prompt. If you just launch a command window, you have to use double quotes. I think. Upgrades to version 20 and commit, git push, and we are upgraded. We are pushed, and that is official. We are 20, and now we need to move forward, and that will be we're going to work on the routing. The different, icons are here, and basically what I wanted to do is, like, if I click on this and this icon looks like this, it should be custom. And if I click on that, and I think what'll end up happening is it will be like, if you go to blank, it'll just automatically push to custom. I think that's sort of like every time I kind of go through, routing is something that, like, there's just a ton of different flavors of it, and just little minor changes that you can do that have results. And I think generally when I go through this process with ChatGPT of getting my routing set up, I end up with it just automatically pushing this blank one to whatever the default one is. So that in that case, it'll be /custom. I think one of the really interesting things is going to be, so that'll be that. And then what we'll do is, I think we're going to use a router outlet. And with the router outlet, what we're going to do is, what am I looking at here? In this app component, this will be replaced with the router outlet directive, I believe. No, component, I guess is what it is. And the router outlet component will know based on the URL whether it should bring in the app custom layout or whether it should bring in the new layout, which I don't think exists yet. And I guess the easiest way to do that, and I'll just close others. I do not believe I have a component for, yeah, so we're going to create a C app tabular layout. And so we'll go to that tabular layout. Now, one of the things that, so historically, normally these sorts of things are done like, so let's say I create, like, this is normally done by like setting up like a flex CSS, and then when you want it to go tabular, you just change the style to tell it to not be flex, and then it'll be tabular, and you just sort of use that. I'm going to actually, and this is more of a like learning decision, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's make this smaller. I'm actually going to just replace this whole custom layout with the other layout, which should make for a fascinating, to me, a very fascinating problem. And that problem is I will have objects that have references to these actual components, Angular components. And normally 99 times, in most cases, probably 9,999 times out of 10,000, when you delete this, you delete these, right? Because if you delete the parent component, you don't need any of the children components in there. But I think since I have a reference, I think I'll still have a reference to those components. I think those components will still exist. And I can actually check that pretty easily because I can add a let's see, app layout menu, viz. See, we are getting very close to where I'm probably going to need to put these in different folders. But I'm going to have a reference to these, and inside of these I can actually add a ng after or on destroy. And so I'm going to be able to console log something on is destroyed, and I'm betting that they won't get destroyed as long as I keep a reference to it. And that is the crux of a memory leak that is just very, very common in Angular applications. And usually what the experience is that people use the application for hours, several hours. They're doing stuff, and it's just getting slower and slower, and their whole computer is getting slower, or depending on the architecture of their, like if they have a bunch of CPUs, or if they only have like one CPU, like literally, or two CPUs, their entire computer just gets slower and slower and slower. And sometimes they don't turn off their computer for days, and they keep this application running, and it's just slowly moving from page to page and keeping the references to the Angular objects. and then just creating new references and new references and new references. And so this is a very simple application, so it'll be really easy to sort of wrap my brain around that. And so I'm going to take special advantage of this situation to do that. Instead of using CSS and just laying them out differently, I'm going to actually destroy them, create new ones, and create the new references. But I do want to see what happens. So anyways, happy coding, everybody. Bye.